everyone wants either more money or more time back, right? So that's how I would position yourself. If specifically if we're talking about VAs or online service providers, I mean, figure out the specific result that you can offer better than anyone else and show people that. Show people case studies, show people how you're getting that result for other people. And I promise you they will be interested.
Welcome to the Rebel Energy Podcast with me, your host, Jade Ellsbury. I'm a corporate dropout and multiple six-figure online business owner. My mission is to help you get out of the 9-to-5 mindset and create a new narrative for moms working from home to gain more freedom, more income, and living your dream life by cultivating your own rebel energy. So grab a glass of wine, get comfy, and let's dig in. Hi, Rebels. I'm so excited for today's guest that we have. Nino and I connected, about a year ago. He is the owner of SFGL Marketing and has been in the marketing realm for 10 years. So I'm super excited to have him on here with us and go share his story and his expertise as well, too. So hi, Nino.
Thanks so much for having me on, Jade. I'm super excited to be here. I had such a great conversation with you last time on my show, so I'm super
I
excited to be
know.
here.
Yes, me as well. I'm thinking it's gotta have been at least a year, right? I think I was
About, yeah,
baby girl.
I think you were, yeah.
Yeah, it's so crazy how much has changed the last year. Yeah, so let's dig in, because obviously I know your background, you worked in operations, you're running a marketing team as well. So do you kinda wanna share your story of how you got started in this online space?
Yeah, it's a long story. I mean, how far back do we want to go? So I've always just looked at life maybe different. I've never fit the mold. And I don't know if that's because of where I was born or how I was raised. I'm not really sure. So I was born in Austria and we moved to the States when I was really young, 4 years old. And I had kind of a rough childhood. It was kind of not what I mean, everyone has kind of a rough childhood, right? And I'm not here to say that I had it any worse off than anyone else. But my dad, unfortunately, committed suicide when I was 7 years old. And then immediately after my mom remarried, getting into a relationship that was kind of abusive. And since then, my mom has been remarried. I mean, she just left her seventh husband recently.
Oh my
And
gosh. She has baby.
I'm yeah.
Twice
And
divorced.
I'm the oldest of five kids, and so I kind of had to. I don't know. I was along for the ride for all of it, and had a lot of responsibility placed on me. To watch over
Wow.
my siblings, and so I don't know. And so growing up, like it was always really uncomfortable. I never wanted attention on myself. I never wanted to talk about my story or my background because it was so painful, and there was so much that was broken there, and I felt so broken in so many ways, and that manifested in a lot of different ways, right? Like I got into skateboarding really young, and that in a sense saved me, but it also put me around some people that weren't the greatest influences, right? And so there was kind of trouble on that end too, personally. I had a lot of issues, demons, I guess you could say, that I had to deal with.
Mhm.
And I ended up dropping out of high school, when I was 15 years old. I ended up just going in and getting my GED. Somehow I was able to, I like basically didn't go to school at all, which is why they ended up, suggesting I just drop out. And somehow I was able to just go in and take the test and pass the GED test. I guess it's not that hard. But then I just started working full time at basically at 16 years old.
Oh god.
And yeah, and so and I thought that was going to be my life. I was just going to slave away at some job I didn't really like. I was fortunate. My first job, I was a lifeguard, so it wasn't a hard job, and it paid a lot better than maybe some other jobs. But there wasn't much in my life that I was excited about. I had skateboarding as kind of my only thing.
Mhm.
to really lean on, and that kind of carried me through. But because of that, because of a very different experience, right? I didn't have the same childhood that a lot of people have. I didn't, graduate high school like a lot of people do. I didn't end up going back to college until much later, which is another funny thing. But I don't know. It seemed like nothing in my life was kind of on the traditional path. And with skateboarding is very interesting, because it's such an individual sport. You can really make it anything you want. And so it was kind of my way of being creative, and my way of just trying to look at the world differently. And through that, it for whatever reason, it just, yeah, it contributed to this idea that I don't have to fit the mold necessarily, and I can make something different out of my life. And so maybe that's where it started. But when it came to working, I knew that the traditional 9 to 5 job, just, it was soul sucking. It wasn't
Mhm.
There wasn't anything there for me to get excited about. And so I guess from a very early age, I didn't realize or know anything about the online world for a long time. But I always felt like I wasn't meant to just have the regular 9 to 5. So
Yeah.
that started very early. And then as I got older, I mean, obviously I had 9 to 5 jobs, and that's really where I got my taste of marketing. I started in operations, and I was working with this startup company, a and they really, it was really only 2 guys and me, 2 owners and me. And so I was kind of running all of their operations, running the production line, um, and then one of the owners ended up leaving, and so I, like, had more responsibility placed on me, and that marketing piece was kinda handed off to me as well. And I was fortunate enough to be able to build up a team there of some guys that I could bring in, because I didn't really know how to market. And so I thought, well, if we can just get a couple guys in here, maybe one guy that does video really well, and just another guy to kind of reach out to people and manage everything,
Mhm.
then we'd be good. And so but I was always interested in business and how to grow it, and I just through that experience, through that position, I saw that, like, if you don't have marketing, if you're not telling people about your company or your products, you're never going to get business.
Yep.
So I saw the importance of that in that role, and had kind of a bird's eye view of what worked and what didn't, and was able to kind of lead and direct that based on the things that I was kind of studying out on my own. So it was very much fly by the seat of your pants position, and I was just kind of trying to figure it out. But we did, and we were really successful with the products we launched. And I had a blast doing it. It was kind of marketing taps into that creative side of me that I really enjoy, kind of thinking outside of the box, similar to skateboarding. And so that's kind of what drew me to it. And yeah. uh After that position, and that ended really because I reached a certain point. I thought I was going to get ownership in the company because I was basically second in command, and
Yep.
didn't end up happening.
It never
um
does, every time.
yeah.
I know my
Yeah.
ex-husband, he was in his degree or, background's in public relations, that's what my degree's in, and there were so many times where he's like, "But they're gonna give me part of the business," and I'm like, "No, either you're gonna get paid, for the work that you're doing, or you need to get something in writing." And every
Right.
single time, he was always the right-hand man of all these, millionaire successful men, and, to this day, he's still waiting on on someone to give him part ownership, so I see that a lot.
And that's such an interesting point, because not only did that happen there, but then afterwards, as I was even trying to kind of figure out my own thing, I kept going to these people, trying to partner with them and trying to figure
Mhm.
out, like, where can I fit into what they're doing. And I eventually realized that I need to create my own opportunity.
I
Right.
love that, yes.
That was the realization, because no one's just going to give it to me. Even if I did everything right,
And you
there
work
was no
your ass
guarantee of
off
that.
for them, yeah. I think that we see that so often. Do you feel like you kept trying to, like, find a partner because you maybe had, like, some imposter syndrome where you felt like you couldn't do it on your own?
Absolutely. I I felt, I had never run a business, right, until I started my company, and so I had no idea what I was really doing on, like, the finance side, or, there were all these other pieces that I just wasn't confident in, right? Like,
Mhm.
I knew the marketing, I knew how to manage teams and operations fairly well, but I never, when I worked for the one guy, um, he all of the books and all the finances were completely separate, and so I never saw any of that. Um, and so I don't know, there was an element of it where I just, yeah, I wasn't sure if I could do all of it, right? And so there's, yeah, some self-doubt for sure, some imposter syndrome that held me back.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of just fear, like what if I put my time and energy into this and then it doesn't happen. It always just felt safer, to kind of try and tag along with someone else already having success.
Yeah.
But that actually didn't even end up working out. So, it really wasn't safer in the long run.
And I see that so often as well with a 9 to 5. I was just talking to someone in the DMs yesterday. She's like, "Well, if I can just make like, I feel good at my 9 to 5. It's secure. I've got health insurance and benefits and it's just really the way I think that we're wired, but also to the trade-offs that we see. Like I always say, I'm way more stressed probably than I would be at a 9 to 5 because it's my business, my team, like what you had mentioned, you've never saw the books, the financial piece of it, I think, is more stressful, but at the end of the day, to me, that's good stress. I think if
Yeah.
I was working a 9 to 5 and didn't have that stress, I'd be way more unhappy just living the same life every day than being challenged.
Yeah. Yeah, I've talked to so many people that are just kind of locked in, and they have too much invested in their 9 to 5, too much invested in their job, where if something were to happen to that, they'd be devastated. They wouldn't know where to go or what to do. My brother, for example, and I love him to death, and he's such a great guy, and he provides really well for his family. He works for Boeing. He's a senior manager at Boeing.
Mhm.
We're from Washington State, and they just had a round of layoffs, right? And luckily it didn't affect him, but
Yeah.
it could have, right? And he's never really worked anywhere else, at the level that he's working. And so if he were out of the job just at the drop of a hat like that, I mean, that would be terrifying for him. And they have a nice big house, and cars, and everything
Oh,
that they're
yeah.
paying on. And so, like, what happens if your income stream just drops out,
Yeah.
right? Like, what's your backup? And to me, that risk and that fear, that's just as bad
Yep.
as the risk involved in starting a business. Um and that's not to say, that, like, it hasn't been a roller coaster for me emotionally, right? And in every other way. And my wife is a trooper for putting up with it, honestly. But I at the end of the day, I want to live a life where I don't have to look back and ask the question of what if I had done that? What if I
Yep.
had pursued that? Right?
Yeah, I feel
So,
that on a whole level. I felt like when I was, you know, basically at that crossroads where I feel like a lot of us reach of do I keep going and risk it all or, do I need to just call it quits? And that was my deciding factor was like I want to know at the end of the day before I go back to a 9 to 5 and I'm missing out on all these years with my babies at home that I did every single thing that I could. And for me, that looked like after 18 months, finally investing and, in my mindset back then, admitting defeat because I hate asking anyone for help. But, I'm like, well, I've got the work ethic. But I think I finally realized, okay, I've never started a business. So why am I sitting here acting like I know what the fuck I'm doing when I clearly don't
right.
after 2 years of doing it on my own. So,
Yeah, and there is that, right? Like, there are a lot of hard lessons learned when you jump into running a business. And there are a lot of failures. The key is really just to pivot quickly. They say that on average it takes 10 businesses before you succeed, which is really funny
oh
to
shit, I
think
got
about because
lucky then.
yeah, right? Right. It's funny because I have a friend, he's about at 10. I think he's gonna do it on the next one.
Yeah.
And so for some people, that's a reality. I don't
Yeah.
wanna downplay that, right? But, y you know, it's still, I mean, if you can still make it, then all of those tries and those attempts, I think, are worth it,
Yeah.
right? So my mindset is just to keep pushing, keep trying, and that's kind of what skateboarding taught me too. Like, you don't just land a trick first try.
Yeah.
You have to figure it out. You have to reposition your body. You have to do all sorts of different things to try and get closer and closer to landing it. And then once you do, it's beautiful, right? It
Yeah.
feels so perfect. Feels like it was always meant to be. And so that's the journey that you're on as an entrepreneur. It's the small iterations until you finally get all the right pieces together and it aligns.
I
And
love that
so,
analogy, and that's so true, and I've said the same thing. Like my sport was running, and again, individual sport. I was not a team person at all, and like following the rules. And the thing with running is, I'm like, okay, I can just run. There's no rules. I don't have to listen
yeah,
to anybody else, and it was very much an independent sport. And for my kiddos, that's wrestling. Like, I mean, there is that team setting, but seeing their mindset growth. I mean, my oldest son, he sees what I'm doing and he's like launching his own podcast. Like he'll go around and interview his friends before a wrestling meet and like record his own podcast, and he'll talk to me about like mindset and staying positive like during the wrestling match. And so I love that you're comparing something that you're passionate about and like what you've learned through that to an entrepreneurship business. um, and then also one thing I wanted to touch on with you, I did not know all that about your background, but one thing that I see, like even people that I choose to have on my team, I call them like the go-getters, right? Like they're not afraid to go balls out. I really do think our childhood, not saying you have to have like a traumatic childhood to be successful at all, but I think that all of us have that piece in their life where they develop that grit, that resiliency where they're willing to power through, because like even through my childhood as well, there's a lot of different things that I think helped me get to that mindset of just that fortitude of just like keep pressing on. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, no, absolutely. I think it absolutely requires that perseverance, that determination. And I think sports are a great way to instill that in people. And so I think it's awesome that your kids are wrestling.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to like tell my wife, our kids are really young still. I've got a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old. Um, and so yeah, they're small, but they're amazing. And yeah, and so we're trying to get them, to be active.
Yeah.
Uh, and I really want to get them into team sports, because even being on a team, yeah, those values are still taught, right? Of
Oh
of
yeah,
working
totally.
hard and pushing yourself, and so yeah, I love that. I think it's so important.
And the leadership skills as well. Like my son, he's big into baseball as well. And like seeing him go and cheer everybody else on. And I love it. And I love, and I'm not saying you can't be a role model for your children either at a 9 to 5, but I think that, yeah, like choosing entrepreneurship is a harder path. And I think within that, you're always going to see that personal development. Where for me at a 9 to 5, I didn't see a lot of room for me to grow as a person or even as
Yeah,
a part of like that team and that business. The thought of like having to just be somewhere when I'm told to be there, and this is you're capped out, or this is what you're going to get paid. I didn't like that. Maybe I'm a control freak, but for me, I'd much rather be in total control of my income, kind of like with your brother, right? Like he's at someone else's um mercy, really. And for me, I didn't want that. I wanted to be the only person that I could blame if I'm not able to pay my mortgage.
right. I love that. I love that you're in it on that level, like where you want all the risk as well.
Yeah.
Um, I think I think, yeah, I think you're right, absolutely. For me, I look at obviously it's harder, but, I get so much more time with my kids. That's the other thing too, is when I talk to
Yes.
my brother, he works. I think he has to be at work at like 5:30, and because of traffic,
Oh
this is
God, no.
Washington State. We've got some of the worst traffic over there.
Yeah.
Um, and so he doesn't get home until till late. So he only sees his kids maybe a couple hours every night, and I have young children, and I feel
Yeah.
like I would be missing out on their lives and on all of their development if I was, gone all day. And
Yeah.
so it's harder. I mean, they interrupt me all the time and, make it harder for me
They're
to
so
do
quiet
the
right
work that I
now.
need. Oh yeah, they're not, yeah,
They're gone.
they're in another room. So they're
Yes, I know baby girl is too.
right. And so but I get to see them all the time. I take my lunch breaks with them, and
Yeah.
or if there's an emergency, like I can help, right? And so like I just feel like, if for no other reason, I want to do it for them. I want to
Yes.
just to have more time with them and have more flexibility with my schedule and to be able to determine my own hours and you know be at the things that I need to be at for them. Whereas people at a 9 to 5 don't have that luxury.
Online service providers, are you ready for 10K months? Over the past 5 years, I have helped 1,000 women not only start their VA businesses, but also scale to consistent 10K plus months. Whether it's OBMs, SMMs, VA agencies, myself and my team of coaches can help you dream bigger and achieve more. If you're needing a one-on-one coaching program customized to help you scale sustainably, send me a DM at Rebel Energy Coaching on Instagram saying scale. Yes, and I love as well. I mean, obviously, like my clients, all women, but I think it's so awesome to see, a dad's perspective because we're always hearing, oh, the moms, right? The moms want to be able to do this. But I think too, we forget, if we're married and like that partnership of, we can do it for our spouses as well. I don't know if I'm assuming your wife's a stay-at-home mom. Does she have
Yeah.
luxury? Yes. My fiancé, he's a stay-at-home dad. He's with our daughter and my boys go to school, but, I've got my oldest son is at home sick today, and it's so great to have a supportive partner in your corner as well too, to make this possible for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be here without my wife and just what she's put up with for me. She's a saint.
The ups and downs of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But it's funny because I think she would make a better entrepreneur than me, actually. She's always kind of had this hustle mentality and is like really good at haggling. She flips strollers for fun. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but like she's like
No.
really dialed in. Like she'll get these strollers because we have 3 kids, and so she's always looking at strollers. She's so funny. But she will find these amazing deals on them and then use them and then sell them for more after. It's like crazy how she
That's
does it. So we're
awesome.
making money on strollers. I mean, not a lot, right? It's not like we
Yeah.
do it all the time, but she's always thinking like, how can I basically get this for free or make money off of this after I use it even?
Has
And
she
so
thought
it's like
about doing sales?
she needs to like
I
and
was saying, can I
the
hire her to like be one of my strollers? I love it.
Yeah, she's amazing. So the dream is, eventually to figure something out where we can work together, maybe once the kids are a little bit more grown up. So
I was gonna say, yeah, maybe once they're older, if you guys decide to, I mean, you can homeschool as well too, but,
yeah.
and so talking, let's bring it back to the strollers, right? People are
Yeah.
probably, well, how are you able to charge more? And I always say this, like, even if you're selling a house, right? Your house is really only valued at what someone else is willing to pay for it. So obviously, you're in marketing. Like, I got a degree in public relations, right? I've taken a lot of marketing classes as well. I think that that's a really good point to bring home of how can we market our services where they're not going to bat an eye at what we're charging, just like maybe the strollers, right? It's a year used. How is she able to go and find those people that are not going to bat an eye at paying for that at a higher price?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's kind of fun thinking about the stroller analogy and how we work that in. Um, in her case, so she will. often she'll find a deal on one platform and then she'll take it to another platform where she knows, essentially the value of what they're going for there. And
Yeah.
so it's about taking advantage, one of an opportunity that, like, where someone, is getting rid of it, they don't realize the value that's there.
I
And
just
so
wanna get rid of it, yeah.
yeah. So, when it comes to marketing, it's a little bit different, right? Obviously, I think the idea that you have to take your services to the place where they will be valued correctly. I think that stands right to the audiences, the right people.
Yep.
So that's part of it. But how you do that is all about how you position yourself as well,
Mhm.
right? And so, what's the perceived value of your brand or your services, right? How are you? What is your messaging, and what are you highlighting, in terms of the value with how you just talk about your product and services,
Yeah.
right? So there are a lot of different ways to create value for people. And it really just comes back to, for me, most of the time, right? Because there are hard goods that have hard prices that you see in the marketplace, right? And
Yep.
you see companies competing there for best prices, right? You never want to be competing on price. uh, you want to position yourself as being able to compete on value. And
Yeah.
so it's about offering what other people can't.
Mhm.
And so, that may be, I mean, a way to differentiate yourself. For example, if is your audience mostly VAs, or I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, virtual assistants or online service providers, so that falls into the spectrum of, like, social media managers we worked with, um,
Yeah.
kind of that route, OBMs as well.
Yeah, so the way to differentiate yourself, is, like, can you get it done faster than other people? Is the quality going to be higher? Because I know so many VAs, they're in different countries and maybe their English isn't as great. And so can you position yourself as someone who is going to get it right the first time, and where there's not going to have to be a lot of back and forth because
That takes a
you're,
lot of time too.
right, right. So, but there are different things that people value, and the key is to tap into that and really understand your customer or your ideal customer, and then speak to them, speak to their needs. Find something that they really want, and then leverage that.
I love that we're having this conversation. The last couple weeks, we had a masterclass, high ticket client. Oh my gosh, I can't even talk. High ticket client masterclass. And within that, that's exactly what we were talking about, is like how to present yourself or position yourself as the elite person. And so we dove really into that. But I love that you're just kind of reiterating what I teach my clients as well too, because if you think about it, okay, well, why are you not positioning yourself as like the expert or like the go-to person within that specific niche? A lot of times, and I love your perspective on this, I believe it's just because we really don't understand who we're providing to. And if we don't understand, our ideal client, how are we going to be able to really speak to, those pain points that they're having or the goals that they're wanting to reach? And the reason that we have that, mindset is, again, we're just not having those conversations that we need to. Well, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I believe, I'm a huge believer in speaking to your target audience, speaking to your ideal customers, just having conversations and really understanding it and not just guessing, right? This reminds me, actually, so there's a kid from Nigeria that I'm kind of helping out a little bit, mentoring a little bit, you could say. And he wants to he's trying to position himself as a website designer.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to teach him this concept of, like, really niching down and positioning yourself as an expert. And so, like, when he first came to me, he's like, "Oh yeah, like, I'm a website designer, and I do apps." And it sounded like he was trying to cater to everyone and provide this array of different things, when in reality, like, if I'm coming at it, especially if, like, you don't, it's clear that you're just like a one man show, right? Like, I don't want to know all of the different things you could do for me. I want to know what you're best at. I want to know, like, what is the one thing that you can do better than anyone else, that I can, like, if I hire you for that, like, I know for certain that it's going to be the best. It's going to be good. It's going to be high quality, right? Because you can't be an expert at everything.
Yeah.
And so that's go
And
ahead.
I think too, like those, right, those high ticket clients, they're gonna see right through that because, right, like I would say, like we're we have really successful businesses, we make good money, right? We obviously, if we're gonna go hire someone, we know we don't want to hire a jack of all trades. So I think too, really understanding the language that those elite clients that are willing to pay you, 50 to 100 bucks an hour or thousands of dollars for a one-off project, we're going to see right through that. Um, if you're just positioning yourself to basically attract any client that, right? Like, I don't want a VA that does that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really good point because it makes your messaging really weak. And everyone's received those, spam messages from people on Facebook that, list out like, oh, I could do this and this and this and this and this for you, right? But I would rather hear like, if you're going to send me a message, tell me about how, you solved a very specific problem and got a very specific result for someone. And
Mhm.
if that's relevant to me, and if that sounds good, like I'm probably going to respond to it. I mean, if
Yeah.
if you demonstrate that like in this one thing, I can make you all this money or I can save you this much time or I can optimize things in this way so that you don't have to like you can hand this off and never have to worry about this again. Like those kinds of outcomes interest me, right?
Yeah.
Because I everyone wants either more money or more time back, right? So that's how I would position yourself if specifically if we're talking about VAs or online service providers. I mean, figure out the specific result that you can offer better than anyone else and show people that. Show people case studies, show people how you're getting that result for other people. And I promise you they will be interested.
100%. And really looking at, is this a sophisticated buyer? You and I have been around the block. We have, I'm assuming you have as well, but like I've invested thousands upon thousands over six figures back into my business the last 7 years. So I'm a more sophisticated buyer. So, even the way that I talk to brand new virtual assistants that are new to the online space is a lot different. That's my lower offer, for REA 1.0, but it's gonna be a hell of a lot different than I talk to someone that, is looking at my $30,000 one-on-one consulting. Because, right, it's you really have to understand too the way that your ideal clients buy and again speak their language, so to be. So if I'm sitting there using like all these words to a woman that's just wanting to leave her teaching job and she's brand new to the online space, I'm not going to use like certain abbreviations or
Yeah.
specific language. It's going to be more towards, again, the more sophisticated buyer. So again, for people when they're going to work with us, right? Like that's how we can help them position themselves of like, hey, if you're wanting to land a $3,000 client, just like your client from Nigeria, here's the way that you need to show up. Here's the kind of verbiage you need to use. Or, again, if not, go talk to your ideal client and figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we wrap this up, I know that you have an offer that you have coming out right around the new year. Do you want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So this is kind of a new direction for me, right? So I've been doing marketing and it lets me use my skills as a marketer, but I'm creating a summit. It's essentially a self-help conference, an online virtual self-help conference. And I'm bringing together a bunch of these really cool speakers because my passion, kind of going back to this idea of living life kind of on your own terms and looking at life maybe differently and finding better ways to do things. I just know that there's so much out there that can help us improve our lives if we just know it, if we have access to it. And so I'm trying to bring experts together to show people a different way of living that brings greater joy and happiness to their lives, helps them live healthier, helps them live at a higher level. And so that's what we're doing. And so the summit dates are January 6th through 10th. And we're probably going to have a bonus day on the 11th as well, which is a Saturday. So it's going to be a full week of really cool presentations. And it's free to attend. Like you can watch the presentations for free. We will have like a VIP upgrade for anyone who wants lifetime access.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can check it out at strivelifesummit.com. And yeah, it's going to be a really good time.
For those of you guys listening that do not know my background, that's actually how I got started in the VA world was getting hired on by a agency that worked just on summits. So I used to be
Really?
the person that put the entire summit together. Yeah. So that's my background. So I love that so much. But yeah, summits are amazing, guys. So definitely go check that out, especially with the new year, right? I know everyone's like, oh, this is going to be my year, new me. I think that would be a great way to start off the new year by just listening to other experts and yeah, just learning some more. So thank you so, so much, Nino, for your time today. It was so great.
Yeah, thank you so much. And that really is the idea of the summit. We want to make it the best year so far in people's lives. And
Yes.
so it's going to be a lot of fun. And on the marketing side of it, so another thing for people, even if you're not interested in the self-help stuff, um, come and connect with me because after the summit, I'm going to be doing I'm going to use this as a case study and show people exactly, how we were able to generate all the leads. Like I did one post. This is pretty crazy, but I did one post and we got over 200 applicants with one post. And so like knowing how to do that, I'm going to break that down and show everyone what I'm doing to generate leads that way. So it's an amazing tool as a marketer to do things like this as well. So if you're
Yeah.
interested in marketing yourself, I'll have more information on that later as well. So
That is amazing. Okay, definitely hop on that, guys. Thank you so much, Nino. I appreciate you.
yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure to be on the show, and I always love talking to you. So thank you so much.